Welcome to our UEFA Champions League way too early predictions. All right, guys, we're gonna take a look at the Champions League schedule, the first 8 match days for each team. Obviously, as you know, with the new format, 1st through 8th get the bye, 9th through 24th place. They have to play a series of what in America we'd call a wild card game to get a chance to make it further in the tournament. So we're gonna break it down team by team, look at their schedule, give you a quick insight, and we'll let you know where we think they're gonna end up on that table.
First up, we got the reigning champs, Real Madrid. Based off their schedule, it looks like they have a couple hard games, but their 2 hardest games, they'll be at home, so I think that's a huge plus to them. And since it's in their DNA to naturally win Champions League, I think they're gonna make it through this first round with an ease.
So looking at their schedule here, they've got a couple tough opponents, highlighting Liverpool, Milan, Dortmund, a repeat of the last season's final. I mean, Kyle, I don't know what you think, but I think this schedule is definitely viable for Madrid. And it looks like the bulk of the tough opponents come around match days 4, 5, 6.
3, 4, and 5. Yeah, they have
That's like
Dortmund, Milan, and Liverpool. In the past, we shattered Liverpool's hearts, but based on Real Madrid's current performances lately, we might struggle with them. Same thing with AC Milan. In the past, I'd say it'd be a walk in the park. We should easily get the dub. But again, Madrid needs to figure out their front 3 situation and stop colliding heads with Mbappe and Vinny. Obviously, Borussia Dortmund got 2nd place last year, and that was a tough game for Madrid as well. So besides those 3, I think those are a coin toss. We could potentially lose 1, if not all 3 of those games, but all the other games I think we should be able to win and then make it on to next round and not have to play the wild card game.
Yeah, so I think we could say for Real Madrid, we think they're gonna finish in the top 5, but in reality, anything other than first place is already a failure.
Next up, we have the reigning champs of England, Manchester City.
Man City, obviously still probably a top 2-3 club in the world, if not number 1. They have a very defined playing style that we've known for all these years, 4 prems in a row. They're still going strong. City, I think their draw. Kyle, what do you think about their opponents? We can highlight Inter, Juve, PSG. I think those are their toughest opponents.
Yeah, those are definitely their toughest matchups, and it doesn't even look that hard to them. To me, with freaking nature just bagging goal, back-to-back hat tricks, I think Man City's going to walk through all these teams with the breeze. And it'd be interesting to see what their strategy is, because this is a new Champions League format where, like, do they just rest late if they win their first 6 and make it through? But I don't think PSG's the dominant force that they have been in the past. I don't think Juve is all that good this year at all. Yeah, I think their toughest opponent will be Inter. Unfortunately, that's their first matchup in the Champions League, but once they get past them and they're home, I think it's a breeze for them. And if they play all their starters, I see Man City winning all 8 games with ease.
Yeah, definitely placing probably top 3, getting that bye to the next round. Kyle, where did Kyle go?
I just want to make sure fans do. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
We've got Bayern Munich, the German Giants. I've got a pretty interesting schedule. I mean, we're gonna see them play against Barcelona once again, but with their former coach now on the other side. Kyle, what do you think they're gonna do in this round?
Do you think Blake's gonna reverse what happened last time and it's gonna be 8-2 Barca?
Barcelona is playing very well, and I don't think that this Bayern, the season just starting, they've got a new coach, a new system. I think close game, but I honestly could see it going either way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I think that's Bayern's hardest matchup is Barcelona.
There are also some other teams they're playing are PSG and an interesting one, a team that's very interesting this whole season, coming off what they did last season, is Aston
Villa.
This is their first time in the Champions League in a while, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they perform in both competitions. But yeah, I think Bayern, they should get in the top 8 if there's nothing funky happening.
No, yeah, and I think Aston Villa, they're doing they're off to a good start in the Prem. They did lose 2-0 to Arsenal, and I think Bayern Munich is just as strong as Arsenal, even though it is the start of a new season and it looks like company's having a little rough start. But other than Barcelona, I think Bayern should have a pretty easy walk in the park in the first round and make it top 5 easily.
Up next, we have a very controversial club over the past 10 years. A money-spending club. They've had big players come and go. Nothing big in the Champions League, really. I mean, they've made it to the final. PSG has made it to the final once in that weird Lisbon bubble tournament they had in 2020. But other than that, I mean, they've lost Mbappe. Pele's starting to take more weight on his shoulders.
Might be a hot take, but out of all the top 8 teams, this is the one that I think PSG's not going to make it to the next round. I think they'll have to play a wild card game. They have the toughest one. So
very tough schedule. So we'll have PSG in the wild card playoff round. Liverpool turning the Champions League this year because they took a year off. They took a little break, went to Europa League, and now they're back, fortunately.
Back to playing on Wednesdays, not Thursdays anymore.
Milan, Leverkusen, Real Madrid, PSV, and then they've also got to play against Girona, which it's no easy schedule for Liverpool.
It's not an easy schedule, but again, like you mentioned, they play at Anfield. That's the hardest stadium for teams to come in and win it. So that's also a huge advantage to them, because shout out to their fans for making it an electric atmosphere.
They're under a new manager this year. Got a few new faces. They just brought in Chiesa.
It all comes down to the manager and how well he can bring this team up in the Champions League, because again, like you mentioned, they were in Europa last year, but the manager looks like he's doing pretty good in the EPL as Liverpool. I don't even think they've conceded a goal yet.
I don't think so,
and they're winning all their games with ease, so they'll make it into the top 8, no problem.
FC Internazionale Milano, otherwise known as Inter. This is another team that had a bit of a disappointing run last year in the UCL. I think they were looked at as a team that was going to make it deep into the tournament, coming off the final they made the season before.
Man City and Arsenal, the 2 powerhouses of the EPL, so that's going to be extremely difficult for them. Then they have Bayern Leverkusen. They don't make the top 8 and they have to play out for our game.
Borussia Dortmund. You can highlight teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, and there's going to be obviously these teams, they're on a different caliber. Bruges, Stuttgart, Dynamo, Bologna, who had a great Serie A season. This is their first time participating, I want to say, in the Champions League. And Shakhtar, which they're always that team that just comes to annoy any year.
Always annoying in the Champions League. An easier route than other teams, and I can see them making it into the top 8 and not the wild card game.
RB Leipzig, Red Bull Leipzig, they have a schedule. Kyle, we're looking here. Atletico, Juve, Liverpool, Inter,
Aston Villa.
Those are difficult matches.
I'm gonna say this is another one, because of based on how the new Champions League format is set up, that I don't know if they're a true pot 1 team, and this is gonna be my 3rd team that I don't think is gonna make it to the top 8, and they'll have to play a wild card game.
With teams like Leipzig, it's the depth in their roster that can, like, they're playing a long Bundesliga season, Champions League, like, they lost Dani Olmo, one of their best players, so that's a big hit. Although FC Barcelona, the Spanish Catalan Giants, they have a schedule highlighting teams like Monaco in their first match day away, Bayern Munich at home, Dortmund away at Signal Iduna, and then there's other tough games like Benfica away is never an easy game. Atalanta, they were in the Super Cup final against Madrid a couple weeks ago. I don't think they got the hardest schedule. It's a pretty viable schedule, I'd say.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, yeah, I'd agree. Very viable. Nothing they can't manage. Not overwhelming. I think Barcelona make it in the top 8 pretty easily. So after reviewing the pot 1 teams, we had 3 teams that are gonna not make it into the top 8 and have to play the wild card game. In pot 2, we have 3 teams that we think will make the top 8, which are Bayern Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid, and Arsenal, who will bypass the wild card game. Chris, do you want to go over Leverkusen's schedule and explain why you think?
Yeah. AC Milan, they had Inter, they had Atletico away, Liverpool. Those are all tough games. Feyenoord away. It's a decently hostile atmosphere in the Netherlands. Solid roster. I do think a lot of the times last season luck was on their side for sure.
For sure.
But do you think that their roster depth could play a factor in the two tournaments that they're going to be playing. I guess if they're also cup matches factors.
No, yeah, I think that plays a factor in almost every team, especially now with, what is it, like 40 games higher than like 10, 15 years ago already.
Two more UCL games as compared to like the old group stage.
And then this is the first year we've seen this new UCL format, and I think you needed to have UCL history. And what was the other factor that made you go into pot one versus pot two?
So like I think it's their performance over the past 5 seasons.
5 seasons. So unfortunately, like just having one phenomenal season last year didn't equate for them getting into pot one. And then in this transfer window, they kept most of their players. Maybe this is a want more than an actuality, but I think and/or want Bayern Leverkusen to really show up this year, because this is the first time they've been in the Champions League in
a while.
And I think Xavi's going to make a statement that he's not a one-season wonder.
The second team we have finishing in that top 8 with the big transfer window they've had, and I guess I haven't started off that well in La Liga, but Atletico de Madrid is a team that invested a lot because they want to make that next step, get back to those Champions League finals, win the Champions League finally. But analyzing their schedule, we can see
you got Leipzig, Benfica, PSG, Leverkusen, Salzburg. So still a difficult schedule, but I think other teams have a more difficult one. And with Atletico Madrid's history just always being in the Champions League and also being in controversial but the hardest league in the world, La Liga, I think that they'll showcase their strength.
Third team we have making it in the top 8 from pot 2 is none other than the second place team for the past 2 years in the Premier League, the Gunners, Arsenal. They have made a couple decent signings. I want to highlight Calafiori, the Oregon. They have also signed Raheem Sterling on loan, Mikel Merino, the Spanish midfielder.
Overall, they have PSG. Shakhtar is going to be a tough one, like we said earlier. Inter Milan will be a tough one. I think their schedule is difficult, but not nearly as difficult as some other teams. And I think Arsenal will be top 8, no problem.
But by no means would we be surprised if some of these other pot 2 teams make it. For example, Atalanta, Milan. I'm going to say even some pot 3 teams can make a run, because
PSV, they're always there.
PSV had a decent Champions League run last season.
Can't count them out.
Teams in pot 4, Girona. We saw what they did last year. They did lose. I think with Girona, the problem with them is definitely their squad depth.
Mm-hmm.
They already struggled last year with squad depth, and then now with 2 tournaments, it's going to be even more difficult.
Aston Villa too,
another honorable mention.
Made top 4 in the Prem. That's second hardest league in the world.
Yeah.
That's an extremely hard feat. So you can't count them out of the Champions League either.
Yeah, we'll see Atalanta. They have interesting players like Lookman. He's been doing well since that amazing Europa League hat-trick he scored. Benfica is always a difficult team to play against. What is your take on AC Milan? Because they're a team that 2 seasons ago, they made it to the quarterfinal. Last season, they kind of had a bit irregular Serie A season. Historically, they're a big team, but I feel like they're kind of not quite what they used to be.
No, I don't think they're what they're used to be at all. And like we talked earlier with Inter, how they had that easy route 2 years ago and they got exposed. Somehow all the Italian teams showed up, and then they had their easy route in from the quarters to the semis, and everyone was like, okay, maybe Serie A is back. But then last year, Milan didn't do that well in season. Same thing with Napoli. I think Napoli ended 8th. So I don't know what is really going on. Maybe like Leao, who was rumored to go to Barca. Sometimes he's on, and then sometimes like, what is he even doing?
In pot 3, we have other teams like Feyenoord and PSV. We're looking for Santi Jimenez to make that next jump to a bigger club. Lastly, a team we'd like to highlight, potential dark horse, quote unquote, I don't know, Stuttgart, who had a great Bundesliga season. We can't forget to pay our respects to them. Second place in Bundesliga. They're in the Champions League after a long period of time.
Yeah, the only other team that we didn't list that I want to give a little shout out to, maybe might be a dark horse, but we'll make it to the wild card stage is Sporting because of their striker. Bagged, I think, 35 goals just in season last year, and he's already off to a hot start.
Lastly, we appreciate the love and support you guys have been giving us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It greatly helps us. We're on the road to 1K subs. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know in the comments who you guys think are gonna make the top 8, who won't, who's gonna be the failure. And Kyle,
It's only a premiere.
till next time.